tuned in to the 49ers Rush podcast, and here is your host, John Chapman.
All right, 49ers fans, welcome back to another episode of the 49ers Rush podcast with John Chapman, and I am excited. Today is just going to be straight your questions. These are just so fun, just a draft mailbag question. Most of the questions are 49ers related, but the prospects, whether you're a 49ers fan or not, we're going to be breaking those down on here, and this is straight from you guys, so really appreciate all those that reached out and, brought stuff up. I remember several years ago whenever I started this, I couldn't get questions. I would try to, and it was just like crickets. But now, I ask for questions, and you get 30-some-odd plus questions, and you can't get to them all. So it's absolutely astonishing and amazing the support that you guys have brought to this podcast, in just a few short years. But yeah, I'm going to try to get to as many questions as I can, and we'll just keep going. So the first question, without further ado, is from @JNovel, and he asks, which top 20 pick will most likely be a bust, regardless of where they land? Now, a couple things real quick. So there's a big discrepancy between my top 20 picks and picks that I think will go top 20. And so the first guy that just screams out to me is Rashawn Gary. I know a lot of people are super high on him. Coaches love this guy. And this is a big difference between scouts and coaches. Scouts judge the film. These are the guys that go out very early on and they just break down everything about the film and they get to know the ins and outs of them and all that stuff. And so they'll come out and say, man, yeah, this dude's amazing, but he doesn't really get a lot of stuff done. Whereas a coach is going to see exactly what he was able to do at the combine and say, all right, this kid is so special that I think I can get the best out of him. And so this is why Rashawn Gary will go in the top 20. If you were going off of production and film, he's not a first-round draft pick. He's not in my first-round grades at all. But you have to understand that his ceiling is high and his potential is nuts, which potential just means you haven't done it yet. And the high ceiling, low floor guys are always scary. And keep in mind, the average rate of success for the draft is around 50%, and that's in the first round. The NFL Network has been airing all the old, first rounds of previous draft, 2012, all the way up to, where we're at now. And you just watch it and you're just like, ouch, at pick after pick after pick. So you're talking a 50% chance. Now, the higher you pick them, usually the better chances of success are. But Rashawn Gary's going to go in that kind of 8 to 20 range. He's going to be there. But it's just, I don't know. You could talk about how athletic he is. He ran a 4.58 and he weighs 277 pounds, which is just nuts. But the problem is whenever you watch his film, his first step is just okay. Chase Winovich beats him off the line every single play. He pops straight up and loses all of his leverage and power. And the second step, he is standing straight up. So again, if you're a scout and you break down these plays and you look at it, you're just like, oh, that's awful. That is awful. That is awful. And it's something that continued, freshman, sophomore, junior year. But again, you have to remember, this is the number one overall player out of high school. He was ahead of Ed Oliver, which is insane to me. And I have him as a more athletic Quentin Coples. The athleticism is there, the ceiling is there, but the floor is low. Worst case scenario for Rashawn Gary, you put him as one of the defensive ends in a 3-4, and you just let him take up blocks. So whenever I say bust, he's going to have a role in this league. However, first round pick, I wouldn't touch him. The second guy that stands out to me is Daniel Jones, and the reason why I picked him is this. He's the antithesis of Rashawn Gary. He probably has the lowest ceiling of any quarterback in this draft. He is a guy that, everybody loves because he was coached by Cutcliffe, at Duke, the quarterback guru himself. And I will say this, I've been able to meet Cutcliffe a few different times and sit through a lot of his sessions where he teaches and all that stuff. And the he's unbelievable. He's amazing. One of the best coaching conferences I've ever been to was with Cutcliffe, probably one of the best and second best. He is unreal. So a lot of teams see what Daniel Jones has done, and they say, man, he's been coached by the best, and he's probably one of the more pro-ready guys that we have now. But at the quarterback position, You don't draft for floor. I don't believe that you do that. It's almost opposite of every other position. You have to draft on top-tier talent. And Daniel Jones does not have that. His footwork is great, but whenever pressure comes his way, his best trait is he climbs the pocket, and his pocket awareness is great, but he doesn't have that killer's mentality that you want as quarterback. He's fine checking down no matter what. All of the comparisons to Eli Manning, they're appropriate. I called him Davis Webb with more upside, which isn't saying much, but he just doesn't force the ball deep. He only had 5 completions over 30 yards in the air. That is dead last of any person that is draft eligible at the quarterback position. So he's just a guy that's going to dink and dunk. Now, he is more mobile than people think. He ran a 4.81, and he had 17 career rushing touchdowns, but he's not like a guy that you're going to design runs for. He can escape out of the pocket. So if you want to coach and you have a solid team and you're just wanting a quarterback to not lose it for you, Daniel Jones is going to be your guy. But if you try to put him in a position where he's going to be winning you games, I just don't think it's going to happen. So those are kind of my 2 biggest guys where I'm just like, I really would not want to touch either of these guys. So, and again, to put this in perspective, I have Daniel Jones as my number 90 overall player. He's going to go in the first round. I don't care what anybody says. The new draft rumors are that there are several teams that have Daniel Jones as their QB1. And a big reason why they have that is because those are teams that value prototypical height, weight, speed type guys. And whenever you look at Daniel Jones and you see him out there on the combine, yeah, he can throw the deep ball. Yeah, he's got the arm. Yeah, he's got the size. He's got all those things. He checks every single box until you put on the film. And when that game's on the line, I don't know, man. I don't feel comfortable giving this guy the ball. So those are 2 that stand out to me. Daniel Jones is going to go in the first round, and it's going to be an absolute mistake by whoever gets him. But I love that as a 49ers fan because it's going to push more elite talent down in the draft. So very good question, Jay. Thank you. Next question is going to be Henry Elizondo 9. He is an absolute awesome Twitter follow, so really appreciate all that he does for me. I'm thinking the 49ers don't draft an offensive lineman. Do you agree or disagree? I disagree. I think that interior offensive line is one of the top 3 needs for this team. And so if we look at our interior position, we have Laken Tomlinson, Weston Richburg, and Mike Pearson, who we just signed to a new deal. Now, he got backup money. His contract is, this Mike Pearson, 3 years, $8.2 million. That is backup money. And he's 31 years old already. So to put this into perspective, we signed Laken Tomlinson, who we traded for. Amazing trade, probably the best trade that this organization has made thus far. A previous year, we signed him to a 3-year, $16.5 million deal. So you could see how the 49ers see this starter versus reserve money. We did the same thing to Daniel Kilgore a year before, and then we traded him to Miami for free just because we were able to get Richburg. Pearson's a backup guy. He's a guy that could back up all 3 interior guys. He's tough as hell. He played all 16 games. He did allow the most quarterback hurries with 26 last year. He's just a guy he's just a guy. He's a jag. And so the fact that he is durable and dependable, that's his best traits. But if Mike Pearson is starting for the 49ers this year, that is a major concern. So then you add on to the fact that, hey, Joe Staley will be 35 this year. So this is the last year of Joe Staley's contract. Now, I do believe if Joe Staley wants to play another year, the 49ers would welcome him with open arms. He is still putting up elite production. He's so athletic. People forget, he went to Central Michigan, and he was a tight end. And, he kept adding weight. And eventually, we traded up in the first round to get him. And he was drafted the exact same draft class as Joe Thomas. And he's still going. I love Joe Thomas. He's probably one of my favorite non-49ers. But the fact that this guy is playing 2 years after Joe Thomas hung it up, like he is going to be a Hall of Famer. He has just played at such a consistent level for so long. So anyway, you have to make some type of contingency plan for what's going to happen when Joe Staley does decide to hang up the cleats. And you have to assume with the contract status, the age, Are you going to bring back a 36-year-old left tackle? Even if you are you going to plan for 37-year-old left tackle? So anybody that fits that kind of guard tackle transition. So, tackles get knocked in the draft process for they don't have the length of an elite left tackle, and so they get knocked. We see this with people like Jonah Williams, Cody Ford, Kajust, these types of people. That's okay, because that's our specialty. We're fine with that. So if we aren't sitting in that second round, that pick number 36 is the most important pick for the 49ers. At the number 2 pick, even if they go Quentin Williams, Josh Allen, Nick Bosa, they trade out, you're going to get a stud there. But that 36 pick is interesting because there is going to be so much elite talent around that. And I really do believe that's going to determine how this draft measures up. Do we trade up again for the 3rd consecutive year under John Lynch and Shanahan in the second round to get all the way up into the first round, or trade up in the second round even more? Do we stay pat? Do we trade back? I personally would prefer us to trade back, because we can get the same type of guy in that 30 to 50 range. That's the depth of this draft. So some of the guys that I think we could be targeting in that second round, is somebody like Eric McCoy going to be there? I'm going to talk about him a little bit in the future. He's a pure guard center guy that is just absolutely incredible. I have a first round grade on him. But if we look at the tackles that could play guard and tackle, that's where the value is. Dalton Reisner is unbelievable. He's played all 5 positions for Kansas State. I think he would be a guard right tackle for us. And the fact that he's played center as well, that's huge. And he's mean as hell. So we could put him at right guard now, and then whenever Staley does retire, you move McGlinchey, who's the ideal left tackle, height, weight, speed, length, all that stuff. You move him to left tackle, then you move Reisner to right tackle, and it's a seamless transition. Also, Jonah Williams definitely will not be there in the second round, but if you do move up, perfect fit, perfect integrity, all those different things. So there's a lot of guys that we could do that with. And it seems like on our offensive line, what we value most is versatility. Somebody that can play center guard, or somebody that can play guard tackle. And if you could do that, and if you can move and block in space, with the zone blocking scheme that Shanahan does, I think that that's going to be a value. I do think that we will take an offensive lineman in the first 3 picks. At least I hope we do. So we'll see what happens there. So thank you, Henry, for your question. Next question up, we have at Eat Sleep Niners. Absolute legit Twitter handle. That is legit. Where would you have graded Kentavious Street before the injury? And do you anticipate him having any impact on the roster? Thanks for all the good work. Appreciate that. So last year, if we go to Kentavious Street, this was our ACL pick. That it doesn't matter who our GM is. We love ACL tears. I absolutely hate it, but that's okay. He tore his ACL working out for the Giants last year prior to the draft. Now, the thing about this kid is he is insane strength. 700-pound squat, 28 bench reps at 225, which is elite for his size and what he is. He's just a guy that he looks like a defensive tackle kind of 3-tech, but he has unreal motor, and his power is just, you see it on every single film. So the problem is he's the last one off the line sometimes, but whenever he makes contact with the offensive linemen, they move. His power shows up on every single play. Now, the problem is he's a little bit of a peaker. And what I mean by that is instead of driving through the offensive lineman, he will stand straight up and look on each side of the head of the offensive lineman to try to figure out what the play is doing. And whenever he does that, he loses his leverage. And he tries to watch the ball carrier and stuff way too much, and I hate that because that forces him to completely negate all of his power. He's a powerful guy. That's his strength. But whenever you play under your shoulder pads instead of behind them, you lose all leverage and power that you had. Lynch, after he picked him, said the long term with him is his versatility. He could play over the tight end, and he could play the 3-tech. So he rated him as 3rd round without the injury. We got him in the 4th round. So this just adds to it, I put out a tweet, how many guys do the 49ers have that can play 3-tech on our roster? DeForest Buckner, Solomon Thomas, Eric Armstead, Ronald Blair, Contavious Street, Julian Taylor, DeMontre Moore in certain situations. That's a lot of dudes. That's 7 guys that can play this 3-tech spot, which we are loaded up on. The 49ers, they seem to value certain positions, running back more than most, 3-tech more than most, linebacker more than most. If you look at the picks and the money we have spent at the linebacker position, Fred Warner traded up to get Reuben Foster. We pay Malcolm Smith. Then we pay, our new guy coming over from Tampa Bay. So there's a lot of it seems like there's certain positions we really, really like. So take that for what you want. I like Contavious Street. However, he's going to be log jammed at a position that we are loaded at. So my personal idea on him is anything that we can get from this guy is bonus. I'm not that I'm writing him off. I'm just saying, man, he's got an uphill climb. And then you want to talk about the people that want to draft Quinnen Williams. If that's the case, Contavious Street has no place on this roster. Maybe strong side end behind Eric Armstead, but he's not. He can play on the edge, and we are notorious for putting players on the edge that don't belong there on pass rushing downs. Look at Solomon Thomas. I would argue Eric Armstead shouldn't be playing the edge either. I understand he played very well at it, but that's not his best strength. He needs to be inside. That's kind of what he is. And so, again, are we going to put this guy in a position, to be that strong side defensive end behind Eric Armstead? I guess so. He needs to play inside personally. I think that's what's going to help him out. And again, this goes back to your question. What is the coach's job? Is the coach's job to put their players in the best position to success? Or is the coach's job supposed to adapt the player to fit what the coach wants? And personally, I believe it's the coach's job to find ways to put your players in the best situation for them. And if you do that enough and your personnel works together, then it molds very well. But whenever you take guys out of their natural habitat and force them to be something they are not, you kind of waste a lot of talent, which we have seen, unfortunately, in this Robert Saleh defense. So, moving on. Next question is up from @MattBarr_. And if you don't follow @MattBarr_, you really need to. He hosts the 4th and Gold podcast, which is great. It's a relatively new podcast, but he is spot on with his takes. His question is, what are the athletes worth taking flyers on in the later rounds? And you don't have to look very far. If you look at the 49ers official visits and who they have brought in and the positions, man, they're bringing in wide receivers, wide receiver and edge. Those are kind of the 2 main positions that they just keep bringing in. Jalen Hurd is number 1 for me. I really do believe that he is a guy that I have a 2nd round grade on. I think that he will go in that 3rd to 4th round. If you look at him, he was the running back for Tennessee that was ahead of Alvin Kamara when he was there. So he was the guy that started over Kamara. But he didn't want to play running back because wide receivers have a longer career in the NFL, so he transferred to Baylor. And this guy is just he's such a weird cat because he's big, but he's shifty. He runs pretty good routes. He has great hip movement for a wide receiver that's only been playing there for a few years. Love this kid. He's just kind of a jack of all trades, and I hate Baylor with a passion. But Jalen Hurd's film is undeniable. I think he's somebody that in the 4th round at that 104 pick could go. There's lots of other wide receivers. Emmanuel Hall out of Missouri, again, another freak athlete that can kind of do it all. We'll talk about Miles Boykin here in a second. But there's lots of top-tier, physical, athletic guys that you can get late because they're not polished. And so what you have to do is you have to say, all right, we're going to take this athletic specimen in the 4th round or later, 4th, 6th round, and we are going to basically redshirt them and try to get them to play up to the level that we need. If you can learn routes and if you can work on your route running skills, Kyle Shanahan's going to turn you into a great wide receiver. The problem is some of these elite athletic, bigger-bodied guys struggle with breaks in and out of their routes. So that's kind of the issue, but Jalen Hurd is definitely the guy for me there. This next question is from @_Northern Soul_, and he says, hey, could you please break down Miles Boykin for me? I freaking love this dude. He also says, I just purchased the draft book. Great read. Thank you. Man, really appreciate at Northern Soul for supporting this. And if you guys want to look into the draft book, you're talking over 80 pages of draft content, big board, Bill Walsh scouting notes on all the top tier players, catch radius, draft profiles. You want to know how many brothers and sisters each prospect had and what they played in high school. Just went in depth on everybody and just put all my notes out there. All you got to do is head over to eatsleepfantasy.com. Just click John Chapman's draft book. You fill in the information. The promo code is RUSH, all caps. Promo code is RUSH, all caps, and it's half off. It's only $5 for the amount of work that put in. It's an insane amount of information. So if you head over there and do that, I would really appreciate it. So without further ado, Miles Boykin. He's a Notre Dame wide receiver, 6'3", 220, and he is just an absolute physical freak. He ran a 4.42. Which at 6'3", 220 is just unbelievable, 33-inch arms. And if you look at what he was able to do at the Combine, he is in the 80th percentile or higher in every single category. He has the number 1 catch radius in the NCAA, which is where you add height, arm length, and vertical. You add all those up, he's number 1. So you want to talk about guys like Hakeem Butler that are 6'5". You want to talk about DK Metcalf, who is just an absolute physical freak. This guy outjumps them all, and by about 4 to 5 inches over the second place guy. He is unbelievable. His catch radius just from his vertical is 152 inches or 12'8". That's touching the top of the backboard off of a vertical in basketball. That's how scary athletic he is. Now the problem is once you turn the film on, that's where the issues arise. Not a lot of production in his career. He had 77 receptions in 3 years, 55% catch rate. That's a huge red flag right there. And 6 drops. Now, deep balls is where he specializes in, being this huge, height, speed guy. He caught 11 of 19 deep balls. Deep balls are passes that travel 20 yards or more in the air. Now, those are the good things. If you just want to use him as a deep ball specialist, that's great. And he draws a whole bunch of pass interference penalties because he's so fast and he's so long as an athlete. The problem is his stance is awful. He has a false step out of his stance about every single play, which is basically he's lined up in his wide receiver stance, watching the ball. As soon as the ball is snapped, he lifts up his front leg and he puts his front leg right back where it was and then takes off. So he's at, a quarter second behind every single play. I have no clue how Notre Dame have not helped him with this. So that tells me a couple things. 1, he's uncoachable. Or 2, I don't know. I cannot imagine being on a coaching staff and watching film and never picking up on this and addressing this issue. He's very unpolished in everything. He struggles to get separation in man coverage. He's a very big body, and he's got top-end speed. But after that, it gets rough. He never is away from the defender. He does not adjust well to the deep ball, so you need an accurate pass to get it to him. But if it's that kind of soft, deep ball where you put a lot of air under it and you just let your wide receiver go get it and high point it, that's his specialty. But it's got to be pretty accurate because he doesn't make great adjustments to the ball if it's behind him or if it's shallow. You've got to kind of put it on the key, but just put some air under it and he can be he can be pretty special. He will be drafted pretty early because of his physical traits and potential. My player comparison for him is Moritz Boehringer. If you remember the German player that was just elite physical traits, white guy coming out of Germany, but he just reminds me of him, and he's going to have time. You're going to put him out there, and you're going to say, look, we're going to throw you a screen and allow you to just create on your own, or we're going to throw you a deep pass. And until you can get past those things, you're just going to get probably 10 snaps a game. And so do you want to use a roster position on a guy like that? I think he'll go in the 4th or 5th round. He's not a guy I would like to take in the 4th. 49ers don't have a 5th round pick, so you're talking 6th round when I take him. Maybe. I probably still wouldn't just because I want more polish personally. But anyway, so that's there. Now, next question is from Jesse V. Garcia. He asks, I love this question, if the Niners trade out of number 2, what 2 teams would make an offer that the Niners couldn't refuse? Also, what players do you think that they would target after they take those trades, and why? So here's the problem with the draft. There's not a lot of teams that are quarterback needy that are willing to trade up that we've seen in previous drafts. Now, I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm just saying if you look back at the previous drafts that went quarterback heavy, if you look back to Carson Wentz and you look back to Jared Goff, those picks were made by now. They were made well over a week before the draft. If you look at, Sam Darnold and you look at Josh Allen and you look at Josh Rosen and all those trades were taking place before now. Now, the Cardinals traded up draft day, and then the previous year before that, if we get to the Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, those trades took place draft day. So the fact that 0 trades have taken place in this draft, I think, is very telling. Arizona kind of controls the fate of how this draft works. And they seem to be letting on to everybody that, guess what? Yeah, they are going to draft Kyler Murray number 1 overall. And if you saw, Arizona released a hype video for 2019. This is their official Twitter website and all that stuff. They released this hype video, and guess who wasn't on there? There was not one clip of Josh Rosen on this hype video. So you mean to tell me you're going to trade up and get a quarterback in the first round and then leave him off your hype video? If this is a smokescreen, I'm just going to applaud the Cardinals. They are trolling myself big time. So, it is what it is. I do think that they will take Kyler Murray. So if we look at that, let's just look at teams that have the draft capital to possibly move up without mortgaging their future. And that leaves 3 teams, in my opinion. The most likely is definitely the Oakland Raiders. They're in full-on rebuild. I get that. But they could move up. They need an edge player so bad that if Kyler Murray does go number 1, they could be sitting at number 4 and lose out on the top 2 edge guys, Josh Allen or Nick Bosa. And, they would get Quentin Williams, which is great. But, man, if you want to talk about the one strength that the Oakland Raiders have, it's that defensive interior. And so do you take another guy to, Deshaun Hand, you got Maurice Hurst, you got these guys that are – you don't need help there. Obviously, Quentin Williams is probably better than those players, but they are the worst edge situation in the entire NFL. So if they sit at 4 – and, I guarantee you this, there are 3 players they love. It would be Kyler Murray. They've talked about how they would love to have that quarterback. Also, Bosa and Josh Allen. After that, I think they're probably going to go linebacker, somebody like Devin White or Devin Bush. Who knows what they would do there. They do have 3 first-round picks, so I could see Oakland trying to trade up. And I've talked about this in the past. I think there's 2 options that they could do. They could part with 2 first-rounders and do that 4th pick and the 27th pick, package those together to the 49ers. I think that would be an ideal trade. Or if the 49ers want to push back, we would get the number 4, the number 35 pick, their second-rounder, and a 2020 second, which is what I would want to go with because we don't have a second-round pick next year because we traded that for D Ford. And I think that the strength in this draft is in that 30 to 50 range, like I said before. So that's what I would personally go for. And if we do drop back to 4, you've got those 3 guys that you Niners wouldn't mind taking Quentin Williams. Personally, I think edge is the bigger need there. But if you drop back to 4, kind of like what we did with Solomon Thomas, this gives you the added draft capital to finesse yourself in and out of this draft and or the next draft. So I would take edge first if at all possible, and then out of all these spots, interior offensive lineman, we've talked about safety, cornerback, wide receiver. I think all those are options. It seems like the 49ers fans want wide receiver. I think most draft teams want wide receivers. They're just more exciting, I guess. Now, New York Giants is another team that has the draft capital to trade up, but I don't think they're going to do it. David Gettleman never makes trades in the first round, and he is stuck in the Stone Age in almost all things. But if we just look at their draft capital alone, they definitely have the power to do that. If they package their number 6 and 17 first-round pick, it's the exact value according to Jimmy Johnson's trades chart, to jump up. Now, I understand people are saying, oh, that trade chart is obsolete. I don't think that it is. And top-tier quarterbacks, yeah, you have to overpay to jump up to a quarterback, and maybe they would pay more than this. But if you look at all the trades that take place, they follow it pretty dang close. I guarantee you every single team in the NFL uses this as a resource. They might not swear to it by the Bible, but this is a jumping off point for trades and negotiations. So you could talk about those 2 first-round picks, which would be, man, that would be unbelievable. Or, which I would prefer, the number 6, the number 95, their late third-round pick, and a 2020 first. That would be ideal. I don't think that the Giants would do that again, but that would be pretty damn fun. Instead of having that second-round pick, which we don't have, we have 2 firsts next year. And then the last team that I would talk about would be Green Bay. And again, a lot of this just has to do with their draft capital. They have 2 first-round picks, and they also have 2 fourth-round picks and 2 sixth-round picks, and all their original picks in all of the other rounds. So as far as draft capital, they are loaded. So you could do the number 12, the number 30 pick, and a 2020 second. That would be beautiful. But if you drop back to that 12, you're out of the elite tier. And so if you drop back that far, you're hoping, Montez Sweat, Brian Burns, Cleveland Farrell at edge. And then with that 30 pick, you're going to get that corner, that safety, that wide receiver or interior O-line guy. Or maybe you do number 12, number 44, so they're first and second, and then a 2020 first. Again, I do not think that they will do this. It doesn't really fit what they do. They believe in accumulating picks for the future, not giving them away. But if they want to jump up for that elite edge guy, I mean, you can't fault them. If they're going to try to, get a Super Bowl while Aaron Rodgers is there, he's 35 years old. Why not sell all out and just go get it? So just some possibilities there. I think Oakland is by far the best potential trade partner, but I don't think that it's going to necessarily happen. Before I get to the next question, we got quite a few more. I want to take time just to thank our sponsor, Game Day Sports and Memorabilia. These guys are the absolute best. If you're on Twitter, you got to see the gentleman that received David that received the DeForest Buckner jersey, and he put the picture of him holding up the autographed DeForest Buckner jersey, which is just awesome. Absolutely love this podcast and how we can just bring 49ers fans together. And just want to say thanks to our sponsor for helping that out. Game Day Sports and Memorabilia, whatever needs you have, those guys will take care of you. Head over there and let them know the 49ers Rush podcast sent you. I'm hoping to set up something to have another giveaway soon. And so, again, just want to say thanks to those guys. Next question from @TopShelf. That's a legit TopShelf _. He says this: which player/position should the 49ers draft to help offset divisional rival strengths and help win divisional games? This is the way a lot of NFL teams address their personnel decisions. First off, he gets it, because here's what you have to: win your division first. If you win your division, all good things happen. And so going back to TopShelf _Ty, he says, I say we need guard help to slow down Darnold, also free safety to slow down McVay's offense. So again, this is the perfect way to build your roster. And so you have to look at, okay, well, who's kind of king of whatever right now, the NFC West? You've got to say the Rams. They made it to the Super Bowl and lost last year. What are the Rams great at? They have elite interior guy, the defensive player of the year, back-to-back years. He's unbelievable, Aaron Donald. And then they have elite corners. And so what are you going to do? How do you stop that? Now, I already talked about some of these guys, but if you wanted to stop, if your number one priority in this draft, we want to do our best to isolate Aaron Donald. I would personally, draft Eric McCoy, because interior offensive lineman out of Texas A&M, which is so hard for me to say. I'm a Longhorn. I hate the Aggies, but you've got to respect people that play with the way he plays. If you put on the Texas A&M versus Alabama game, you're going to see Quinnen Williams have a good game. He's going to have a very good game, but never against Eric McCoy. So if you want to talk about the most disruptive player, that all the 49ers fans love in Quinnen Williams, if you want to see him get stopped, on half the plays where he lines up against McCoy because he moves. He's over the center and he's over the guard. He plays kind of the 1-2-3 techniques. Quinnen Williams does, sometimes even outside. But whenever he lined up, had one-on-one versus McCoy, it was stalemate at best for Quinnen Williams. So if my idea is, man, I've got to at least stalemate this elite guy, and I'm not saying McCoy can do that against Aaron Donald. I'm just saying, if we look at all the college guards and centers, who's the next best thing to Aaron Donald? I think it's got to be Quinnen Williams at the next level. So why not draft him? Again, Dalton Reisner, absolutely unbelievable and mean as hell. You want to piss off Aaron Donald, which the 49ers have been able to do. If you remember the first game of the year when we beat him about 3 years ago and he slammed his helmet in the middle of the field and got kicked out of the game, that was just one of my happiest moments ever. Or perhaps Lindstrom. I think Lindstrom is a guy, I doubt he is there at pick 36. A lot of teams are really high on him. I'm not as high as most. I do have a second-round grade on him. I think if that's your idea, those are the three guys that you would want to target. Now, free safety, if that's what you're wanting to do, it depends on what you want. Are you looking for best ball skills? Because we struggle with interceptions. If that's the case, the two guys that have the best ball skills is not even close. It's Nasir Adderley and Thornhill. Juan Thornhill out of Virginia. You talk about those two guys, holy freaking cow. You know, Eric Crocker, who knows his stuff, Thornhill's his guy. He is absolutely in love with that guy. So if your job is to deflect passes and get interceptions, you want to target those two free safeties. Now, if you're looking for more speed and all you want is, you know, an interactive free safety that's always going to be around the ball, then you're targeting Darnell Savage or Jonathan Abraham. Those are the two guys that you want to go after. So ball skills, Adderley Thornhill, speed, Savage Abrams. Those are kind of the guys. So just kind of pick your poison at that safety position. Personally, what I would do, and again, this is operating under the assumption that Kyler Murray is going to be drafted by the Arizona Cardinals. I think the biggest issue is mobile quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, you know, just got his extension. Then Kyler Murray probably will be the most mobile quarterback in the NFL as soon as he is drafted, even more so than Lamar Jackson. Now, I understand the size is less, but if you watch Kyler Murray's film, he doesn't take hits. You want to talk about a mobile quarterback that's super, super smart. He never gets hit. He's so fast and so quick that he can shift out of his way and get out of bounds or get down before anybody makes contact with him. Now, I understand he'll take some hits, but if I wanted to neutralize that mobile quarterback, the number one player on my big board would be Josh Allen. Not only does he bring the edge pressure, I get that, but if I'm valuing the spy linebacker and I want to stop that, Josh Allen is the best in this draft, and it's not even close. I have him rated as high as Devin Bush and Devin White in that category. So, you know, again, it just kind of gives you a very unique perspective into what it is you value. I'm not saying take Josh Allen with the number 2 pick. However, I am saying if my number one goal was to keep mobile quarterbacks in the pocket, I would draft Josh Allen if that's what I wanted. And the added bonus of, you know, edge rusher, that's something to keep in mind too. Next question, I'm going to butcher this, but it's Malavos, very active on Twitter, really appreciate all the support. He says, John, if we go edge wide receiver with our first 2 picks, can you give me 3 names for home run third-round selections? Maybe one of the Wisconsin interior offensive linemen. Again, I love the interior offensive lineman class. It's very, very deep. So, assuming that we go edge rusher then wide receiver with our first 2 picks, I would love to target any of these guys. And it's not even close for me. Like, the third round is pretty fun, I guess is the best way I could say it. So, the guy that you're talking about, Big Bo Ben Showell, I know I said that awful, and I apologize to your whole family. He is an absolute stud. Now, I have a second round grade on him. He's mean as hell, and he loves to just destroy people. He's just the definition of a killer. But, you know, he's pretty big. 6'6", 309. He's a little bigger than what we're used to, or at least what we like. Elton Jenkins is another guy that I think would fit out of Mississippi State. He's 6'4", 310. He need to drop a little bit, but he's that perfect center-guard combo. Now, there's some draft rumors that are saying he could slide up in the first round. I don't see that. We saw it last year with Frank Ragnow out of Arkansas, who I was super high on. I had an early second round grade, but the Detroit Lions took him in the first round, and he had a pretty rough start to the year, but he turned it on late. Very similar player in Elton Jenkins out of Mississippi State. I think that would be an insane pick. Then if you're staying at that interior guard spot, there's going to be some guys that don't fit. Nate Herbig out of Stanford. We love Stanford guys, but he's just too big for Kyle Shanahan's system. I think he's not going to be on our big board. Michael Jordan, the center out of Ohio State, 6'6", 312. Again, a little too big, a little too slow. He ran that 5.27. I don't think he's going to be there. But Connor McGovern, he's kind of the borderline size that we look for. 6'5", 308. And he's a perfect zone blocker. Now, the problem with him is he does struggle in pass protection. But if you're talking about that third round scheme fit, ideal, whatever, I think he's going to be one of those guys, Connor McGovern, that could be there. But Elton Jenkins would be ideal. That's who I would prefer in that interior spot. So, and then another question from @PandaKing9. We had a question from him last time. Appreciate the support. Can you break down Keyshawn Johnson from Fresno? And he spells his name in the best way ever, Keesean. So Keyshawn. Now, he's another one of those guys that's quite unique. Yards after the catch is everything for him. He's 6'1", 201 pounds. Now, he ran a 4.6 40, so that's not ideal for somebody at that size. Usually, if you're in that 200-pound range, you're more of a speed guy. So he's not a big guy, and he's not a speed guy. He only has 9.5-inch hands. That's, suspect, not awful. Now, again, yards after the catch are what make him special. But after that, he's a jag, just a guy. I had a coach all the time, and we would put together, all right, what are we going to do with this guy? We don't have anybody to play this. Oh, just throw so-and-so over there. Who's that? Oh, he's a jag. It doesn't matter. Let's just put somebody over there. He's just a guy. He's not somebody that's going to hurt you, but he's going to disappear on film a lot. He is a 4-year starter. 65% catch rate, and he's got a lot of receptions, 275 yards. Again, this is out of Fresno. But 19 drops, not too bad for 4 years. 24 career touchdowns, and this is what's special about him. 1,425 yards after the catch for his career. That's just absolutely incredible. 15 out of 27 on deep ball catches. That's good, but very bottom-tier athletic profile. He doesn't even look like a 4.6 guy on film, unfortunately. He's quick out of his stance. He's great out of his stance. But he doesn't have a second gear. Like his acceleration is really good, but he's not anybody that's going to ever run away from anybody. He rounds off his cuts a little bit too much. I think that he can be a decent run blocker, but he has this horrible tendency to where he'll start the block and be in perfect position. He'll turn around and look over his shoulder to watch the play happen, and he loses his block all the time. So several times a game you will see him watching his ball carrier get tackled. That is a huge pet peeve as a former coach. But he's not a separation guy at all. My draft day comparison for him was a poor man's Mario Manningham. So, we've had him with our organization in the past. He does kind of fit with what we want. It's just the separation and speed are not there. But again, you're talking about a guy that, let's say we just say, hey, wide receiver is not a concern. In our first 3 picks, we go edge, safety, corner, interior O-line, whatever. We just say we don't need more wide receiver. This is a guy that I think will be there in the 6th round. And so do I like him? No. Would I like him in the 6th round? Yeah. Would I like him in the 7th round? That'd be a hell of a pick. So just because I'm a little bit lower on these guys, and as we get closer to the draft, it's pretty fun because, Twitter starts to move on from the top guys because they feel like they've graded them and they understand them, and they start to go deeper with guys like Keyshawn Johnson and Miles Boykin, and that's fun. But these guys have value, and he's going to be drafted. There's no doubt about that. Anybody that can create on their own after the catch is special, and the NFL values that. It's just trying to find that place, and this is why I do my tiered rankings, where you would like to take this guy. Where will he return value? And for me, my last tier wide receivers, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is my 7th tier. I have Terry McLaurin, Keyshawn Johnson, McCole Hardman, Miles Boykin. They're clustered to me because those are all players that are hyper athletic and can create, but they're not great wide receivers. McLaurin is probably one of the biggest names where people are going to be like, what? Again, I think all these guys are better athletes than they are football players, and because of that, they're going to be drafted all probably higher than I have them. But I want somebody that's going to do the same things play in and play out. And I don't see that in Keyshawn Johnson. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you don't already, follow me on Twitter at JL_Chapman. And if you have not purchased the draft book, please go do that. $5 off. Head over to Eat Sleep Fantasy. It's the first day you're going to see John Chapman's draft book. Click on that. Fill out all the stuff and enter in the promo code RUSH, capital letters, RUSH, for half off. It's only $5. Appreciate it, and we will talk to you soon.